There's a reason you felt pulled toward these words instead of scrolling past them. Something in you recognized a frequency before your mind could label it. You are not here because you were searching for motivation or reassurance. You are here because a familiar internal structure has started to loosen, and the part of you that once held everything together is no longer convincing enough to keep you anchored. Most people feel this moment and immediately distract themselves. They fill the silence with noise, productivity, relationships, or explanations that allow them to return to who they were without questioning it too deeply. They interpret the discomfort as danger and retreat into old habits with urgency, mistaking familiarity for safety. But you didn't rush away. You paused. You leaned in. You stayed with the sensation instead of silencing it. That alone places you in a rare psychological position. You're standing in a threshold space where the old internal logic no longer fully operates, yet the new one has not been embodied. This is the place most people never let themselves remain long enough to understand. Not because they are incapable, but because this space dismantles certainty before it offers clarity. What you may not realize yet is that this tension you feel is not instability. It is precision. It is the exact pressure that appears when a long-standing internal arrangement begins to dissolve. You are not losing direction. You are losing an outdated reference point. And that can feel unsettling only when you believe the reference point was you. This message is not arriving to wake you up. You are already awake enough to feel the shift. It is arriving to explain what your nervous system already detected before your thoughts could translate it. Something fundamental is completing its role inside you. And the fact that you are still reading tells me you are ready to hear what that actually means. The internal experience you are having does not fit neatly into words like confusion, burnout, or dissatisfaction. Those labels are too shallow for what is actually occurring. What you are sensing is the gradual withdrawal of an internal identity that has been running your life for longer than you remember, consciously choosing it. An identity that once organized your decisions, regulated your emotions, and structured your sense of self is quietly losing authority. You may notice it as a lack of resonance with things that once defined you. Goals that used to energize now feel oddly hollow. Social roles you once performed with ease now feel restrictive. Even your own reactions surprise you, as if they belong to a version of you that is no longer fully present. This is not inconsistency. It is misalignment between who you have been practicing and who you are prepared to become. Your body understands this before your intellect does. That is why the sensation shows up as restlessness, subtle anxiety, or a persistent feeling that something is unfinished without knowing what. The system that kept you functional, alert, and adaptable through earlier chapters of your life is beginning to stand down. And when an internal structure that has been active for years starts to deactivate, it does not exit loudly. It leaves through dissonance. You are not malfunctioning. You are outgrowing a framework that was built for a different season. And frameworks that are no longer appropriate do not collapse because they were wrong. They collapse because they have done their job. What you are experiencing now is not an ending caused by failure, but a completion caused by readiness. The challenge is that readiness often feels identical to instability when you have learned to equate stability with sameness. Here's the part most people never examine closely enough. The version of you that feels familiar is not necessarily the version that is most authentic. Familiarity is often the result of repetition, not truth. Over time, your mind and nervous system learn patterns that reduce uncertainty. They catalog emotional responses, predict outcomes, and create default strategies that help you move through the world efficiently. Eventually, those strategies stop feeling like strategies and start feeling like who you are. But what you repeated under pressure was never meant to become your permanent identity. It was a solution to a context that no longer exists. You learned how to respond quickly, how to anticipate disappointment, how to regulate yourself without support. how to maintain composure when vulnerability felt unsafe. Those adaptations were intelligent. They were necessary. They were protective. And they were temporary by design. The problem arises when adaptation hardens into self-definition, when you confuse what helped you survive with what should guide you forward. At that point, the system keeps running even when the threat is gone. You continue interpreting present-day situations through emotional templates built in the past. You're not responding to what is happening now. You're responding to what once happened then. This is why change can feel so exhausting. You're trying to move forward while carrying internal instructions that were written for a different environment. Your reactions are fast, familiar, and automatic, but they are no longer accurate. And accuracy matters more than efficiency when growth is involved. You're not stuck because you lack discipline or vision. You're stuck because an internal identity that once ensured survival is still trying to manage a life that now requires expansion. And survival-based identities are excellent at maintaining control, but they are incapable of creating depth, ease, or alignment. They were never meant to. When new possibilities enter your life, they do not meet you as a blank slate. They encounter the internal structures already in place. Opportunities pass through perception. Relationships pass through expectation. Success passes through self-concept. If those filters were shaped during periods of contraction, the new will always feel constrained, no matter how promising it appears externally. This is why you may notice a strange pattern. Different circumstances, similar emotional outcomes. New environments, familiar frustrations. New people, old dynamics. It is not because the world keeps repeating itself. It is because your internal orientation has remained unchanged, while the external scenery has shifted. Your system keeps referencing old data. It looks for threats that are no longer present. It prioritizes control, where trust would now be more appropriate. It chooses predictability over resonance, because predictability once equaled safety. And so, even when life offers something genuinely different, it gets interpreted through an outdated internal language. Letting go of that language feels dangerous because it removes a sense of competence you worked hard to build. You knew how to navigate the world as that version of yourself. You knew how to manage disappointment, regulate expectations, and stay emotionally contained. Releasing that identity can feel like stepping into incompetence again, as if you are unlearning a skill rather than outgrowing a role. But what is actually happening is not regression. It is a recalibration. You are transitioning from operating on reflex to operating on presence. That shift is disorienting because presence requires responsiveness instead of prediction. It asks you to feel first and decide second. And that can feel exposed when you are used to leading with armor rather than awareness. The exhaustion you feel does not come from life demanding too much. It comes from maintaining an internal structure that is no longer aligned with your current capacity. You are carrying an identity that has exceeded its functional lifespan. And every day you insist on using it, your system signals resistance. There is no dramatic battle required to release an identity that has completed its function. Fighting it only reinforces its presence. What is required instead is clarity. The kind of clarity that allows you to see a pattern without merging with it. The moment you can observe a response forming without immediately acting from it, a new dimension of choice becomes available. This is where real change begins. Not by forcing yourself to become someone else, but by allowing yourself to respond without defaulting to who you have been. This can feel unsettling because the absence of automatic reactions creates space. And space, when unfamiliar, can feel like emptiness. But emptiness is not absence. It is potential without form. You may notice moments where you pause longer before speaking, where your body wants to react, but you don't immediately follow, where an old emotional script presents itself and you choose not to perform it. These moments are subtle, but they are significant. They mark the transition from identity as habit to identity as presence. This phase often feels unstable because you are no longer anchored to a rehearsed self. You are learning to trust a version of yourself that is responsive rather than defensive. That trust develops through experience, not through explanation. You cannot think your way into it. You can only practice staying present when the old reflexes no longer run the show. The unfamiliarity you feel is not a warning sign. It is evidence that you are no longer operating from memory alone. You are engaging with life as it unfolds, rather than as you expect it to repeat. And that requires a different kind of courage. Not the courage to endure, but the courage to remain open without guarantees. This is the point where many people rush to redefine themselves too quickly. They look for a new label, a new role, a new narrative to replace the old one. But rebirth does not require immediate definition. It requires permission. Permission to exist without armor. Permission to move without rehearsing. Permission to be present without needing to explain who you are becoming. Some people in your life may notice the change before you fully articulate it yourself. They may interpret your steadiness as distance, your boundaries as coldness, your evolution as rejection. Let them. You're not responsible for maintaining versions of yourself that no longer fit simply to preserve familiarity for others. Growth will always disrupt expectations that were built around your predictability. You are not erasing your past. You are integrating it without letting it dictate your future. The identity that carried you through earlier chapters does not disappear. It settles into memory, wisdom, and foundation. It becomes support rather than command. It informs rather than controls. If you feel a quiet recognition as these words land, allow yourself to acknowledge it without analysis. You do not need to rush into certainty. You do not need to announce transformation. You only need to stop resuscitating what has already completed its work. So take a breath, not to prepare for struggle, but to allow space. Let your body register that it is no longer required to brace for impact. Let your mind rest from managing outcomes that no longer need managing. Then, when it feels right, name the transition, not as an explanation, but as a permission. The next version of you does not arrive through force. It emerges through allowance. And you are already doing that by staying present in this moment. That is enough. That is the beginning.